So, talk a little bit about the investigation into this Milepost 132 fire. How was that research?
So once the area was determined safe to get back in there to investigate, we had not only our investigator, but we also had investigators from the Bureau of Land Management. We also had an investigator from Oregon State Police out there, and they were a little bit delayed because of the nature of that active fire scene. There was some challenging trees that were threatening to fall over because of the fire. So we did have to take safety as our #1 priority. But once the investigators were able to get in and assess the scene, they determined that the cause of this fire was an escape from what was a cooking fire. So there was clear evidence of the activity that was taking place and the fire starting from there and spreading into the natural vegetation.
It was on private property that wasn't developed, so somebody just went onto private property and went camping.
Yeah.
Who's responsible, or is there a responsible party here?
Well, I think responsibility lies on the person who was camping there, and they're responsible for the activities that they engage in. But yeah, you're right. It was 13 acres of private property. It's undeveloped. There's nothing on it, but there was clear evidence of 2 encampments at the origin of the fire.
And were these campfires sticks and natural native wood? They weren't trying to use camp stoves or anything like that.
Right. So there was flat rocks that were arranged on the ground. There was a grate, a cooking grate on top, and then there was evidence of wood debris under the grate. So that's where the fire was able to escape. Again, which is why wood burning fires outside right now are prohibited. We ask that people adhere to those restrictions. Cooking with propane or a gas fire is always going to be safer and reduce that risk of spread. But all we can do is ask that people adhere to those restrictions.
Can you talk at all about the investigation that concluded that the fire got going this way and hit this and burned into what? Can you talk about
Specifically, no, I can't. I do know that our investigator was there early enough in the incident to know where the origin was, to be able to come back a couple of days later and walk back to it. And the other investigators from the other agencies were able to confirm that is in fact what happened.
This is a pretty classic example of just how really dry it is everywhere.
Yeah, but the Northwest and Oregon in particular, we're having one of those unprecedented fire seasons. There's conflagrations happening what feels like on a daily basis. Communities are threatened. We're not unique in this. Northeast Oregon, Northern Oregon, Central Oregon, Southern Oregon, we've all experienced large fires early in this fire season, and we've already burned 1.3 million acres, and the fire season historically should just be getting started now. So everybody is dealing with conditions that are just really challenging, not only to fight the fire, but the conditions are susceptible to rapid fire spread, which is why we're seeing these fires go from starting to a couple thousand acres overnight. Thankfully, we had some resources available for this fire to where we were able to suppress the fire and prevent it from getting into that neighborhood. But again, I feel fortunate that we had those resources available, because any other day they may not have been.
I was going to ask that very question. Thanks for answering it. Okay, you're doing great. I think that's unless there's something else you want to add here. Anything you want to add about the situation in general?
I would always love to plug that even though we're in extreme fire risk and the fire danger is high and there's smoke in the air, we still have to take personal responsibility for how we either are using fire outdoors or even our own homes. So please pay attention to your defensible space, and if you can, review the Own Your Zone concepts, and if you can do that on your property and implement those recommendations, you're going to keep your home and your land safe. And if your neighbors do it, then you're keeping your neighborhood safe. And if your neighborhood does it, then we're keeping our community safe. And so we can all play a part in this. Even though it feels helpless, let's remember that 87% of these wildland fires are human caused. So if we can adjust human behavior, then hopefully we can prevent some of these fires from starting in the first place.